Welcome to the Apex Strengthcast with your host, Tyler's not here.
Tyler's not here. Anthony Krznar missing Tyler Seabrook.
Yeah, a little bit. Welcome to the Apex Strengthcast with your hosts, Anthony Krznar and Alana Lambert. While in the US, we did do a podcast, but we had a technical error, which means we lost that 50-minute podcast with Trent Ross. So today, Alana and I are going to be going over World Powerlifting, the World Powerlifting Championships, how I did, and how some of the other lifters did from what we can remember. It's going to be a shorter one than usual, but we're happy to be putting it out, and I'm really happy to have Alana on. So, Alana, quickly, tell everyone about yourself, what your lifts are, why you lift, where you train. That's the Apex Strength plug.
Where I train. Yeah, I train it with Anthony at Apex Strength. Have been doing that for about 6 months or so, and have just had my first competition sort of 2 months ago.
How'd you go?
Yeah, pretty good. Got a good squat record in there.
What'd you squat?
160.5.
Woo! It's a big squat. After, 5 months of training at that point?
Yeah, pretty much.
Or of powerlifting specific training?
Yeah, exactly. And then, 95 bench and 162.5 deadlift. But it was a really good experience, and, Anthony handled me on the day, and now I'm back in preparing for another one.
And that's in December?
Yeah.
You feeling strong?
Yeah, I'm pretty excited. Pretty keen to be off season, but...
Yeah, that was brutal. Lots of 20s, lots of 15s.
So many.
Lots of hamstring work.
Yeah, lots of back work, but you can definitely feel it, and I'm excited to be doing the main lifts again, which is really good.
No, it's good.
Yeah.
So Alana is strong as hell. She's on her third ever training cycle. She came to Apex Strength earlier in the year, and I think on her first training cycle she squatted 150. Mm-hmm. She benched 87.5 kilos and then deadlifted like 155. And then the second one was a shorter one. It was like 8 weeks or 6 weeks.
Yeah. And
she did, like she said, 160.5, a 95 kilo bench, and a 162.5 deadlift. All massive lifts, especially from someone so young and so new to the sport. She's only 22 or turning 23.
Turning 23
yeah.
soon, yeah.
So last year of junior this year, but we're going to go into opens with a bang, aren't we?
Mm-hmm. Very excited.
All right, let's get into World Powerlifting.
Let's do it.
Or the World Powerlifting World Championships. So, as you all know, I competed there. Competed in the 125 kilo class. Weighed in a nice and light 118.6. So I was way lighter than everyone else. I weighed in twice as well. One for a 24-hour weigh-in for 100% raw. One for World Powerlifting. That was 2 hours. That's when I was at my lightest, 118.6. Didn't cut or anything. I just lost weight from deloading. Got rid of a lot of that inflammation. We dropped, the competition wasn't crazy, so we went 322.5 squat, nice and comfortable, best anything like that's ever looked. And at my second comp as a 120, I'm pretty happy with that. The bench calls were brutal, but I still did a 2.5 kilo bench PB at this weight class of 195 kilos. A little bit underwhelming. We were hoping for 200, but, I can go and get that goal next year. And deadlift, well, as usual, I dropped my third. But second was a PB.
Yeah, that was impressive.
Yeah, it came up quick. That was 35 kilos. And then I was a bit too cocky and held it at the top for a little bit and going, this is mine. And then went for 350 on the third.
Pulled it up so fast.
Yeah, it felt good. I got it to the knees. I was like, holy shit, I'm going to get this deadlift now. Like, I couldn't believe it. Because I got it to just before lockout in training once. Mm-hmm. And then I felt my grip slip. And I was like, oh, no. So I kept pulling. It was getting away from me because it hit my quad. And at lockout, so I got it all the way up, and then it dropped.
On the down call.
Yeah, I got the down call. It was shattering. I took my belt off. I went to throw it, and I was like, oh, maybe I won't do that. It'll look bad for Powerlifting Australia. But, we were... it's a learning experience. I'm switching to hook now, among a few other changes. So we also had... I think we had like 8 Aussie lifters, So Trent Ross was a 94, or is a 94, junior, and he broke a whole bunch of world records. I think he squatted like 260 kilos or 255 kilos, and they're the best I've ever looked. He switched from heels to flats about 6 weeks out.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and he got a PB.
That's so amazing.
He benched 150, which is, I think, a 2.5 kilo PB in comp. So up to this point, all his lifting looked really good. He opened with the 100% Raw world record, or the world powerlifting world record on deadlift at 300 or 301.
That's amazing.
And it flew. And I was out back getting ready to do my opener, and I was watching his deadlift. Like, come on, man! Like, this is crazy. Like, he's on today. So he went 315 for the second. I think that was the Australian record. And then he went 320 third, and it stopped at lockout. And then he finished it and everyone was losing it. I mean, this guy is a freak deadlifter. He's sumo hook grip, but he's just so explosive off the floor. It was amazing to watch. I was so I think he did his third just as I was going out for my second, or just before, and it was amazing to watch. Like, the guy has a beautiful deadlift. You know, you can say a bit about his squat, but he makes up for it on the deadlift. Then we had Liz Craven. You know, she was the best female lifter on Wilks over the whole weekend, as you expect with Liz. She did some crazy. She just cut. So she bulked earlier in the year, up a weight class, and she cut back down. And she PB'd on every lift, and total set some world records. Again, another awesome lifter to watch. She got the crowd really hyped. And spending the week with her, talking about training and everything, was actually really informative. I learned a lot. So she did really well. Total PB, and just PBs across the board. It was awesome watching her in her zone lifting. And now I'm going to feel bad. We had a few other lifters who we had, is it Kate or Katie? She's a massive deadlifter. So she did 200 kilos at, I think, 72.
That's amazing.
Or 60 something. Yeah, anyway, it's so over the top watching her lift. She's an amazing lifter. So she did really well. She had a bit of a rough call on her third deadlift, which was the world record. I think they said she hitched when and in the video you can see she didn't, but they wouldn't overturn it, which is shattering. But, you know, she'll come back stronger next comp. She always puts together a good comp. She was saying her deadlift felt off like a few days before as well during training. So for her to come in and get such a big lift still, it was really impressive. Then you had Jessie. You know, again, I think she went 9 for 9 PBs across the board, and she was saying she felt rough because of the 26-hour plane flight 2 days before competing. But she killed it. Like, the Aussie lifters, especially the more experienced one like these guys, set a really good example for everyone else that, you know, we had people there complaining about an 8-hour flight, and these guys are getting off 26-hour flights and smoking PBs. Like, we always put together a really good team. And then, you know, the guys did really well. Like, there were a few other Aussie male lifters. They all did really well. I think every single person PB'd on every lift except me. I didn't PB on squat. But I got a third squat, which is all that matters.
But you played it according to the competition and according to what you felt like you could do on the day, and sometimes that's more important.
Yeah, 100%. Like, my big goal was to chase Cam's total at Nationals, so he competed the day before I did, which was 865. So that's what we would have chipped with the 350 deadlift. Yeah. It would have been 867.5 and a 500 Wilks or 501. And we just lost that on grip. So next year, you know, bodes well for next year. Now, as far as training changes I made, I know we were talking about that earlier, Alana. Yeah. My squat intensities were way too high, so I was coming in wrecked into comp. I was absolutely smashed. So squats felt off, and it was like I couldn't get any good training reps in. So I was surprised by how good my squats looked on the day. But that's when I went to my coach, and I was like, look, man, I think we need to drop the intensity on squats, because my 1 rep max was put in at like 340, I think, which I did.
So based off of your 120 plus numbers a little bit.
Yeah, it was based off when I was about 129. So still a lot heavier, like 11 kilos heavier than I competed at. Yeah. So we dropped those back, and a lot of form work. So we're doing a lot of volume, but we're also doing a lot of sets and lower reps so I can practice, you know, some new forms, sitting back into it a little bit more. as a super, I squatted in heels and narrow, so I was a lot more upright.
Yeah.
And as a 120, with some help from some other 120s, I changed my squat form, which does feel stronger, but I think it tends to slack me out or fall apart a little bit, especially when I'm getting fatigued. So we're going to dial that in, drop the percentages on my squat, and fix that. Bench, as my coach said, you've got an elite deadlift and squat. You've got a very average bench, which is true. So I was coming in, I thought 200 to 205 was going to be there. We deloaded it too much though, so I only benched 3 times in 2 weeks. And 2 weeks out, I did 197, which was going to be a second, and it flew up. Like, it looked like I could have done doubles or triples on it. And then in comp, I got under my open of 187, and it just felt real hard.
Because you hit 200 in training not too long before.
About 6 weeks before, I hit 200. So I was feeling really confident, but then we deloaded it too much. So he said, because my bench is a lot lighter than my squat and deadlift, we need to deload it less. So I think I'll be benching all the way up until about 3 days out of comp, which I think is going to work perfect. That's how I used to train it, even when I was a super. So when I benched 212 kilos and it moved really easy, my last heavy bench session was 4 days out. Yeah. And it worked out really well. Deadlifts, I'm not changing a thing to the programming. We're not changing anything. They were on fire, and they have been all year. Ever since I started working with Ben, my deadlift shot up. Like last year, my biggest deadlift was 320 kilos. I just got 350 to lock out. 335 looked like an opener. Yeah. The only thing we are changing is because I'm doing a lot of grip work, it just doesn't seem to hold up on the Varimax lift. So while I lifted more than ever, it's just not quite there. So we're switching to hook.
Well, it makes sense though as well, because you have had such a quick jump in your weights, and having to go from, your grip keeps up pretty well with what your previous deadlifts were, but you've just done a 30 kilo jump and you haven't sort of brought your grip along with it. So while you're working on that, and you've been working on that a lot, if you can make the transfer to hook grip, why not?
Yeah, no, that's definitely a good point. It's always been a lagging thing though. So even, when I could deadlift only 330, I could only hold on to 320. It's always lagged behind no matter where my strength was at. But yeah, no, I think hook grip's going to help heaps. Other than that, let's go into the actual comp and how that was ran. And, I'd love to go through this with Tyler because he was there for the whole weekend as well. But he's just got back from New York as we're recording this. So, we're doing this one to get it out. And then Tyler might touch on that a little bit more on the next cast when we have Robert Wilks in, because I know we're going to have a lot of questions for Robert Wilks after this World.
So many.
So, the World Powerlifting World Championships. What happened this year was they've affiliated with 100% Raw. And 100% Raw already had their World Championships planned. So Robert Wilks kind of just attached World Powerlifting onto that, and they were two separate things. If you wanted to break World Powerlifting world records, you had to weigh in 2 hours before. Everyone else was 24 hours for 100% Raw. So we had to do both. Most people only did the 100% Raw run. All the Aussies did the 2 hours. So, that was already a little bit confusing, and I think a lot of the 100% Raw guys were a bit confused because they went from using deadlift bars to Alico bars. A lot of them didn't know, so there were a lot of missed attempts. But we always knew it was going to be a bit of a fiasco, this first one.
It's the first of anything, there's always going to be mistakes. You just see what happens and correct for the next time. Yeah,
exactly. So we did have a couple hiccups that weren't their fault. One was we had a blackout on the first day. There was a big storm in Virginia, so even the hospitals that didn't have power were all on generator power. So they couldn't use the lights or anything. But they got it done, and to their credit, the girls did amazing. They were just nah, it doesn't matter. I don't want to think about it. I'm just going to listen to music. They handled it really well, whereas I know I would have had a meltdown. Yeah. So that's credit to them. So there was a blackout on the first day. Everything was running about an hour and a half late. So between their last warm-up and when they said they were going to lift, there was 45 minutes to an hour for the ladies, which is a huge time to not be doing anything. You cool down.
Especially as a competitor, you're prepared to go at a certain time, and then to just be pushed back and pushed back.
Yeah, and you plan your warm-ups like that. It makes it a lot harder. And that happened on the other days, but to a lesser extent. I think our day was the one that they're like, look, we're running a bit late, change your warm-ups accordingly. So we did. But I don't think they got much warning, which is the nature of the beast. You know, comps a lot of the time run a little bit late. And again, it wasn't helped by the blackout. Like, they were trying to get the scorecards up, and I don't think they could use it properly. They couldn't use Next Lifter or Good Lift. I don't know which program they used. So that was all right. The actual comp, like, the platforms weren't the best, and the running was a little bit messy. But again, like, it's their first world championship. We've kind of attached onto it. It changed a lot. We expected that. What I think is important, so while there's a lot to be desired in the way the comp was ran, a lot of that were from outside circumstances. Some of it was from in. Like, you know, a lot of attempts were being read out wrong, or, you know, lifters going out for different attempts that weren't theirs. Again, I think because they had a lot more people than they expected as well because of World Powerlifting, and I think they used a different program to record everything. But what's important, in my point of view anyway, and something I was talking to Tyler about and a couple of the other lifters, is, you know, World Powerlifting's a new federation. Powerlifting Australia is associated with them. 100% Raw brings they've got affiliates in all different countries. 100% Raw do, while World Powerlifting didn't. So you got like Ireland, India, Canada, like a whole bunch of them, which we can now expand out on. What I thought was important for World Powerlifting was that these guys are all really nice people. So anyone I met was really nice, and they're all really, everyone I met was really happy that we were going to have wider testing and proper testing. So while they test, it was like not the best test, where they only test for the parent compound, and then the wider test goes into a lot more.
Yeah.
What I think is important, and what all the Aussies did, was that we're affiliated with this awesome federation, 100% Raw, that has this awesome community. Everyone wants to, you know, just push the sport forward, push drug-free powerlifting forward, and expand out from that. Which, you know, if we went there and everything ran perfectly, but all the guys were a bit dodgy about testing and unhappy that we were coming in, and like, I didn't hear one person complain about the rule changes.
Yeah.
And that they told them next year they got 2-hour weigh-ins and everything. Not one person complained. They were like, oh, yeah. Like, but if we went there and everyone was like a dick and complained about it, I think it would be a lot harder to transition. Whereas little things like a comp running smoothly can be hammered out, you know, through more experienced people, or more experience in general, like running these big comps. And
just having expectations now for next year. Like, okay, we did it this year. These things went wrong. What can we do to stop that from happening again? But yeah, I think huge credit to the athletes who, even under these circumstances, were still fine, happy to help out as well, and just keeping a really positive attitude. Like, it's the nature of the sport, you know? Yeah,
exactly. And, you know, you go to, I don't want to like put whole federations out there, but you go to, like, you know, certain ones entertain a certain attitude, I guess, or they tolerate it. Whereas there wasn't one, like, you know, people being assholes and everything. And it's not a big deal to them. Whereas here, you know, the head of the federation is a really nice guy, really willing to help out no matter what. Like, you know, he wasn't just sitting there, why is everything running smooth? He was there, like, helping everyone out, anyone that had trouble getting shit done. So, to me, I kind of lost my train of thought here. Yeah, that's really important as well. And that he's a nice guy, and, you know, he said he doesn't, you know, let people be assholes, or you know, doesn't want people to be assholes.
You just call people out. You know, we're all here to create a good environment, a good community. Who's one person to? Yeah,
exactly. And I think that's what I'm saying, is that's what I'm really excited for, because I got a chance to meet the community. I was there for 2 weeks, like, you know, I got a chance to meet the lifters, like, and everyone was just super open and welcoming and excited about this change, whereas it would have been really easy to be like, I don't like, you know, people are scared of change.
Yeah, you resist it,
where everyone that I met, all the guys and girls over there, were really excited about it, really open to it, and wanted to move forward. And, you know, they're like, oh, you know, we got wider testing, that's good. The Aussies, they figured out about a bunch of Aussie lifters, and they're super excited for that, because there is going to be a lot more competitiveness as well, but, you know, in a friendly manner.
Yeah.
But I think with us being affiliated and Nauru being affiliated and Oceania being affiliated with them, there's a lot more high-level competition as well, which they're actually excited for. You know, they're not like, oh, shit, these guys are going to come in and break our records. They're like, oh, man, I can't wait to, like, see it and learn from these people.
Yeah, it challenges everyone involved. It gives them future abilities to develop and to compete. And, yeah, like, it's the future of the sport. You know, you keep pushing, you keep getting better.
Yeah, 100%. No, I agree entirely. So, do you have any questions, Alana? Because I'm running out of things to think about.
No, touching on a few things you're talking about. Just one popped in then, like, about how you said you flew in a bit early, like a lot earlier than the competition compared to like some people who flew in sort of 2 days before. I guess, how did you find that helped you come into the competition, and when did you start feeling okay, I guess, after flying in? Because I know you were put out for a few days.
That's a really good question. So, 2016 IPF Worlds, I flew to Texas 3 days out, and I lost like 8 kilos.
Yeah.
From dehydration and travel, and I was a super at the time, so you know you stand and lose more weight. But I was really dehydrated and wasn't well rested. I was jet lagged as hell, and that was a really bad experience. That's when I tore my quad. So this time I talked to like Cam McKenzie. He called me. He gave me a whole list of tips. Like, we were on the phone for about half an hour. He gave me a whole list of tips. And he said go about 5 days. And I was like, you know, I might go 8 days and really just settle in. Like, I knew I could cook in the hotel room. So I flew in early. On the plane, a tip of Cam's was bring a foam roller. So I foam rolled heaps. And then we'll drink a lot of Hydrolite, which I didn't do the last time. But also, as soon as you're on the plane, you're on Virginia time. Wherever you're going, you're on their time. So I actually landed, and I'd slept on the plane in their nighttime, had almost zero jet lag.
That's awesome.
So I took a over-the-counter sleeping tablet that's WIDA compliant and slept a fair bit. So I felt really good. Before bed, another tip of his, lots of like bodyweight squats and push-ups. I woke up not feeling too bad, but obviously when you're sitting in a seat for 24 hours because of all the flying, your hips get real tight and you know nothing really feels good. So I was hoping to, you know, by the time I competed, by going so early, all of that would have solved itself. Like by my second session over there, I did 2 training sessions. The second one I felt perfect, and that was about 5 days after landing. So I went early to really just recover, get rid of like, you know, not be overly tight, not be dehydrated. Because when I landed, I was like 118 kilos in the morning, whereas my morning weight, you know, flying really dehydrates you. And I was drinking heat. I think I drank like 8 or 10 liters of water on the 16-hour flight. But landing early let me get my weight back up a bit. And then I dropped weight anyway from deloading, but I was still heavier than when I landed. Yeah. When I landed, I was 118, but I was walking around like 120, 121 in the morning. Like I was dehydrated as. I looked really good though. But I didn't feel very good. Yeah. And especially, even though I did get all my calories in, it's kind of hard to get good nutrition in on the plane. So coming early let me sort that out too, get into the swing of things, go shopping, plan everything out. So that's why I did it this time, and it was a lot better. So I think from every international comp now, I'll be heading 7-8 days out, because when I competed, I felt 100% normal. Like I was over the jet lag. You know, my training was good, so I think a week's good. Especially the bigger guys seem to be affected more. Whereas you look at, like Liz came 5 days out, so she came on the Sunday, competed on the Friday. I think the bigger people get affected more, because a lot of the ladies did really well. Yeah. But in my personal experience, going further out just let me line a lot of things up, get rid of the dehydration, the being overtired. Yeah. So I guess when you can, give yourself those few days. Obviously, it is hard, travel, cost, financial, everything, but you found it made it much better experience for yourself. Yeah, 100%. As a lifter, I performed a lot better because I went earlier this time. Cool. And then the other thing, I know we've talked about it a lot in training, just hanging around Apex, but like you've mentioned a lot your previous competitions over the last couple of years and how you've just been like a wreck going into them. You know, you're just not put together, you're doubting everything. Not doing too great, but you said like this comp you just felt so much better, like so much more in control. So I guess like what have you implemented over the last year or so that's actually helped you get to that I think place of mind? That's a good question, and I don't know if I have a great answer. I think one, cutting a weight class made me more confident in everyday life, which carried over to my training.
Yeah.
But I think that was just a byproduct of feeling better every day and not always doubting myself and feeling like an athlete, a powerlifting athlete.
Yeah.
But in actual training, I had some really good sessions. I had some really bad sessions. But, this time I kind of changed my outlook, and I went in with the idea that, look, I've done all the work I can. And this is how I'm thinking now for comps and big sessions. I've had an 18-week training cycle. I've missed 2 reps that whole time, both for form issues. One time I drove for 20 hours before the session because I had my brother's bucks. So my way of thinking this time was a lot more positive. I'm like, I've done all the work I could possibly do. I didn't skip anything except my lunges sometimes, most of the time.
Most of the time.
I think I did them once. I'm doing them now, though. So all my training was pretty good. I'd done 18 weeks worth of work. I'd put in the time. At this point, it was kind of like, in my head, I'm like, I'm just going to roll the dice and see how it goes, because there's literally nothing I can do from, 4 weeks out besides taper to be put together better on the day. So while I'm learning how I respond, especially at this lighter weight, to a taper, I went in with the mindset that I've done all the hard work. What will be, will be. If I've gotten stronger, I've gotten stronger. If I've gotten weaker, I've gotten weaker. I literally, there's no point stressing about it, because I've done everything I can. Yeah. Everything I possibly could. I was doing 45 tons on squats a week and training my ass off. And that worked out. I actually slept the night before comp. Because I'm thinking, because I used to just think about comp day as its own individual thing. And
it's not at all.
Well, exactly. Yeah. Now, and with this mindset, I'm like, actually, it's just part of the training cycle. It's the end where everything comes to fruition, right? Where all the hard work comes to play. And sometimes you go backwards. Sometimes you make massive jumps forward, right?
Yeah.
But, there's no point stressing about that when you're doing what's worked before and, training your ass off. So I think just mindset in that way, that I realized, I'm constantly learning how I should train, but also more importantly, you do all the work. Yeah. 90% of the time, it's going to come together, or at least you're going to put together a pretty good performance. You don't need a PB everything. I think the other thing is, because my squats weren't feeling great, but the other thing is I don't play that single lift game anymore. Yeah. And a big change I've made is I'm not going to kill myself on a squat and wreck all my other lifts. So that's the other thing, is I knew my total was going to go up no matter what, because I knew my grip had improved. Yeah. So I think I stopped basing progress off of just one lift, right? So while, you want to make each individual lift stronger, I was like, I'm going to get a total BB no matter what. I usually always am, unless I injure myself. And most people will, if you've trained really hard, haven't had many life stresses, you had a really good cycle like I did, it was pretty low stress. The odds of you having a really bad comp either come down to nerves or attempt selection. So that, that's what I changed. I'm like, I did all the training, it's going to come together.
That's it. I think that's an amazing answer. I think finding a process that you trust is huge. And you found a program that you're like, I can feel what this is doing. I've learned so much about myself. I'm taking care of my mindset, because that's so important. Making sure you're okay throughout the program. So when you come in on comp day, it's not feeling like you're going to fail. You know that you can fall back on your technique. You can fall back on the 18 weeks of programming you just did, and trusting that. Yeah,
exactly. And I think that's the other thing is, which you just made a good point, is trusting the process, right? You're like, this has worked countless times. Why is it not going to work this time? Yeah. So that takes a lot of stress out for me when I'm like, I haven't really had a bad comp for a while. For a long time. I don't think I've ever had a comp I'd call bad except 2016 Worlds. When I hurt myself. I changed my thinking in this has worked every other time. This isn't going to be the outlier. I know what works. I'm just stressing for nothing at this point. And that's
can
what
just help you talk yourself out of when you get into those
And
times.
it happens a lot with lifters. They're like, what if this and this happens? You're like, look, man, you've done thousands of squats this training cycle, thousands of benches. You just got to go there and do one. Yeah. You got to make one good one. You're not going to forget how to squat. And that's so I think a lot of that comes down to as well, though, just maturing as a lifter, but also trying to set an example for my lifters. It's something I'm trying to really improve. I know up until recently, if I ever had a bad rep, I'd like, oh, fuck, and throw my belt and this is ridiculous, I'm a failure, and I'd be down for a week. Whereas I've got that down to like a 2-minute thing now.
Yeah, no, and it, as a lifter beneath you, like it's really helping. You know, we go through the exact same things. We fail a lift, and you know exactly what to say to help us get out of that. So when you come into that moment as well, like it's easy to just be like, hey, like what did you tell us? You know, and you're like, oh yeah, okay.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly. Like
move past it.
And you want to show your lifters that it's not a big deal. Like,
yeah.
You know, it does happen, but you know you can still pull it all together. Yeah, so I think just with that, like changing the mindset and maturing as a lifter and as a coach.
Yeah. And I think we just had like one person ask a question on Instagram, and we've sort of touched on it a little bit. But like, what was the main differences that you found between IPF Worlds, which you went to in 2016, and World Powerlifting Worlds this year?
That's Craig's Instagram. That's Craig, is a 105 lifter in Australia. Sorry. The main difference, okay. Right now, I'm all for World Powerlifting Australia. You know, I've been pretty vocal in that people should compete wherever they want to compete, but I'm also not happy with how a lot of the Aussie and Oceania lifters got treated in the whole IPF Robert Wilks fiasco. That's my biggest issue. But like, I love World Powerlifting. I love what it stands for. I love the community. I love Powerlifting Australia. But I'd be lying if I said that IPF Worlds weren't run a lot better, a lot smoother. The streaming was a lot better. But I'm also, when I say that, I want to point out that, you know, World Powerlifting's fresh. And I have no doubt that from next year, there's going to be a big improvement in the way comps are ran and everything. So the main difference would be how smooth the comp went, right? But
that's not an unfixable.
It's not an unfixable. It's a very small. Well, I say a small issue because we went there with the expectation of this, right? But then, you know, I met a lot of awesome people in the IPF, and I met a lot of people that I think, being the biggest federation, let it go to their head and were a bit arrogant. Which happens, you know, it's nature of the beast. I think when I went to World Powerlifting and 100% Raw, I didn't meet one person where I was like, oh man, that guy's a dick, or that guy was really rude, or they were at least no lifters, I should say. So I think the main difference, especially on comp day, was the streaming, and the IPF World felt a lot more put together. But I can see that's going to happen from the future with World Powerlifting. But also the people were a lot more inclusive in World Powerlifting 100% Raw. There weren't like little groups everywhere of people just want to hang. Everyone just wanted to hang out with each other. So that's the biggest difference. Like, was how the comp was run. But I also see that's where World Powerlifting is going to make the biggest jumps in itself, because, you know, I keep saying World Powerlifting, but it was like also 100% Raw. So that's why I think made a lot of the confusion as well. Whereas if you go like the FIBO Expo in Shanghai, that was a World Powerlifting event. That was ran really professionally. Like, that was super smooth. There was zero complaints from any lifters that whole weekend. Like, everyone said it was an amazing comp, one of the best they'd ever done. So I don't think, while I'm saying, you know, this one has a lot to be desired, or has left a lot to be desired, I think it was a one-off. Yeah. Like, I think there was a lot of confusion, and I think there's going to be massive improvements from this point forward. Yeah. Because World Powerlifting has run international events this year that were run to, like, the utmost standard. So I think this was a very standalone thing. Yeah. And I don't think it's something we actually need to worry about for long. And I'm not just saying that because I'm a World Powerlifting fanboy. Like I said, I'll coach anyone in any federation. I don't have any major bias. I said what my issue was with the IPF. So I think this is a one-off thing. I don't think it's anything anyone should worry about. And you know, we all got to lift. We all got to have a good time. Felt very welcome. So that's the biggest part for me. Yeah. But yeah, there was a difference, and I think it won't last long though.
That's awesome to hear.
Anything else?
That's me pretty covered.
All right. Well, I'm going to end it there. A massive thanks to Alana for coming down. So next podcast, or Strengthcast, we have Tyler Seabrook back, the other host, and we're going to have Robert Wilks on. So make sure you get your questions in for him. He's going to have a lot of answers. You can ask him about training. The man's got 40-something years experience. Training, comp day coaching, world powerlifting, Powerlifting Australia. Ask anything about the IPF. He said he's open to anything. So he's happy to answer anything. He said he can go into a bit more depth, into some things he couldn't before in regards to IPF. I personally want to focus on world powerlifting and moving that forward, and that's what I want to get out of the Strengthcast with Robert Wilks. But if any of you guys want to know, don't be afraid to ask. Massive thanks for listening. Thank you, Alana.
You're welcome.
You did a great job. I kind of just threw it on her today.
Yeah.
I was like, hey, Alana, do you want to do a podcast with me? Because our one was corrupted. So we're losing like 50 minutes. And she was like, all for it. So thank you.
It's okay.
You'll hear from us next time. Thank you.